Good grief. We're going to stand for the pledge, and then after that, if you so desire, you can also join us in a moment of silence. Please keep all of those, as you do self-reflection, in your thoughts that are serving in our military and those in public safety. And apparently, the latest is we're in for about 3 to 5 inches of snow beginning at midnight tonight. So
I don't want to hear this.
well, so keep those that are going to be combating that in your thoughts as well. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. And Commissioner Rothstein, you and I, well, a couple of us were just talking about the uptick in emergencies that we've seen over the last several days. You've had a couple fires down in your district, and so it's important to keep our folks that are out there on the front line. Lost a well-known establishment down in your district.
Yeah,
so.
and keeping with Priority Carroll, it's sometimes not the best news when you hear about this, but when the bullpen a couple days ago burnt to the ground, and then also there was another house fire on Slacks Road yesterday, the priority is, and the appreciation of our emergency services and our community rallying together, both in support of the bullpen. I know they already established a GoFundMe page, working with the team over there to try to reestablish them. And then also just, again, the fire and emergency services in their response. I think there was one minor injury that occurred during that fire at the bullpen, and I believe that person's been released and everything's okay. But again, it's that fire emergency services, their professionalism, their reaction, and the community coming together and rallying around is definitely a priority to our Carroll County. So, thanks.
Good deal. Wait a minute.
You can do that.
Wait a
Go
minute.
ahead.
Wait a minute. I'm going to stop. I'm going this way. How you doing?
How you doing?
I just want to mention congratulations, Chief Spalding from Westminster Police Department on his retirement. I think today is his last day.
Tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I think.
I think tomorrow the new guy
whatever.
takes-
Yeah.
Whatever. Today or
Midnight
tomorrow is
tonight.
his last day.
Yeah.
Good luck in the next steps.
Yeah, we had Commissioner Frazier and I attended their city council. Couldn't think. I was going to say town, but city council meeting the other night and gave him a rock. And
Yeah.
Jeff was had tears in his eyes. He's made a big. He won't soon be forgotten.
Well, he's still here.
Well, and that's what I told
A
him.
little
I
different
said,
capacity.
Put him in a dream.
Well, he said, I'm going to stop being a cop, and I said, no, you won't, because once you got that blue blood in you, it ain't going anywhere.
I
So,
attended
yeah.
his meet and greet yesterday afternoon at Best Western, and believe me, he's well attended. But he is now going to be legislative liaison for the state's attorney, I think.
Yeah,
So,
liaison.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it. So that he'll still be
He's gonna be
visible,
around.
highly visible.
You'll probably run into him, Mike, down there. So maybe you could share offices. So,
Sure.
Weaver, what do you got?
I have two
Commissioner
things.
Boucher, what do you got?
He wants to be skipped over. We can go back to.
Yeah, we'll go back.
Two things. Saturday night, Commissioner Weaver, Sheriff DeWeese, and I attended the Eddie Harrison Jr. Scholarship fundraiser at the Winfield Volunteer Fire Department. It was a wonderful event. I am proud to say that I'm a fellow Woodbinian. The community came together for that family and raised money. Also, the Ravens defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, was there to raise money.
Is Woodbinian a thing?
Yes,
Okay,
Woodbinian.
all right,
I'm
just
a
checking.
Woodbinian. Well, the Ravens defensive coordinator helped raise several $1,000s for this family. It was very touching and moving to see the outpouring of love and support. The second thing is, last night I attended the Winfield Fire Department Stop the Bleed, Save a Life seminar. It was very informative for me to learn how to treat an injury. It's open to the public. For the next several months, every month they'll have a different theme. They will have next month the opioid overdose response seminar, followed by CPR, suicide prevention, water safety for kids, and civilian response to an active shooter. These are all very, very important seminars to attend. If you're interested, please contact the Winfield Volunteer Fire Department through their Facebook page and figure out what the schedule is and hopefully come out and utilize the services and the education. Thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Boucher and Rothstein and I attended the Republican Central Committee breakfast on Saturday morning. It was to hear from our delegation. Enlightening.
Entertaining.
Entertaining. Yeah.
Not the same thing, but.
Okay. All right, anything else for my colleagues?
Move on to the big one
If
here.
not, our Director of Parks and Rec is here today, Mr. Daggett, and I believe we have an item for Priority Carol that's very important. So I'll let you roll with what we have here this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have a great staff down at Piney Run Park. They work hard all year long, and they have some thankless hours and some real challenges down there, but they do a phenomenal job. Recently, we got a card expressing appreciation for the maintenance efforts that occur down there. Those happen under the leadership of Mr. Wade Blank, who's here with us this morning. And literally after this was scheduled, we got another card right on the heels of that, very similar sentiment that, again, people very appreciative of the maintenance efforts here. So we wanted to share that with you, with the board, and bring Wade here to open session to give him a chance to embarrass him, basically. Our guys generally like to do the work more than talk about the work, but we do believe it's important to recognize the effort, and certainly appreciate everything that Wade does, and Brittany Main and Brian Dayhoff down there as well, under Wade's leadership.
I understand that coming from people complimenting Wade. We go way back as a student, North Carroll. I mean, I've known Wade for a long time now. Hard worker and very personable, and I understand why people would send cards saying thank you for what you did. So understandable. It's a great honor to be recognized for doing what you normally do anyway. But.
And you rock a camo hat.
And honestly, I would be remiss if I didn't also say congratulations, if I can give you a coin.
That's your job, Weaver.
I got him this morning on it. He got me. He called me.
So, nice got you.
I just want to say thank you for the work down there, and it's incredible that you overcame the setback that you occurred when Weaver was your teacher. And you still did this. That's a tremendous job.
You know,
I'm going to echo that. Wade, you want to say anything? I mean, you're front and center, my friend.
I'd like
What do
to
you
say
got?
that I love my job down at Piney Run Park. I take pride in everything I do. I do have a great staff right now with Brian and Brittany, and I get to meet a lot of nice people down there. I know all the everyday walkers stop once in a while and just have a couple words with them. They love that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
meet some very nice people down there. Yep.
Excellent. Well, good for you, and on behalf of all of us in Carroll County, thank you so very much for what you do, and keep up the good work. So thank you. We appreciate it.
yep.
And with the 3 to 5 inches of snow tomorrow, it's opening day for Piney Run Park.
Alrighty
Right.
then. And good luck with that, Wade.
It's one of those challenges.
And I think Rita's open tomorrow.
Thank you all.
See ya.
Thank you very much. Okay. First on our agenda this morning is Mr. Mike Fowler, up from Annapolis this morning, our legislative liaison. And Annapolis continues to be very interesting. You know, just when you think that things are interesting here, I challenge you to go to Annapolis, because you ain't seen nothing. Oh my. So from insects to massage therapists to a delegate now that wants to allow motorcyclists to be able to ride in between lanes on the Beltway, I'm going to hand it to you, Mike.
Yeah, lane splitting, that's legal. It's legal in a lot of states.
It is
Yeah.
in California.
Yeah, so, you know, from a public safety standpoint, I'm like, what? Anyway, it's yours. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning. Good to see everybody. I'm glad I'm doing these on a weekly basis. I get to see you a little more frequently. Yeah, so things are cooking, and of course, the Delegate Lasanti saga just keeps getting worse every day. But we're over halfway through, so that's some good news. It's day 51 today, so we got 39 to go. Over 2,400 bills, a little bit under pace of last year. That's always good. The big issue yesterday, of course, was the minimum wage bill hit the House floor in second reading. So it was heavily amended by the committee. And a number of amendments were proposed by Republican legislators. They all failed. So you're probably all familiar with the way the bill was structured. It laid out the increases on a yearly basis up to 15 in 24. Well, the committee amendments, or a number of them, they slowed the pace. So it goes to 11, it's 10.10 now, goes to 11 in June, and then increases by 75 cents a year as opposed to $1. So that gives them an additional 2 years till they reach the 15 in 26. They took the tip credit. The tip credit was reinstated, so servers will now earn that much smaller minimum wage and work on tips. There was an issue of workers under 18. So now workers under 18 will qualify for 85% of the minimum wage. So once they hit 18, they'll go to the full minimum. There was, in the original bill, there was a 7% increase for reimbursements, state reimbursements to community services. So you think of the ARC of Carroll County, for example, to pay their workers. And that's been a sore spot for quite a while. That was stripped out back down to either 3 or 4%, depending on the type of service in the contract, and that really puts it in line with what it has been over the last several years. Also, an interesting point is the Board of Public Works can pause this increase at any point based on economic data. And they took out the linkage to the Consumer Price Index, which would have granted automatic increases based on the CPI. So that's gone. So now there's a discussion of a preemption clause which would limit the ability of counties to raise the minimum wage above the state level. That doesn't exist right now, as you know, because Montgomery and Prince George's and I think Baltimore City have all raised their above the state standard. So that's one of the battles. So the failed amendments, there was an attempt to introduce a regional wage using a tier system, with the rural counties being a different tier. That failed. There was an attempt to increase that reimbursement for the development disabled workers from 3 to 5%. That failed. The bill that Delegate Neil Parrott has with allowing the counties to set their own wage, that was proposed as an amendment and failed. Also raising the age from 18 to 20 that could qualify for the 85% of the wage, that was defeated. And postponing the implementation by 1 year was also defeated. So it did pass on second reader. That means it's going to come back to the House floor for a full debate and a vote up or down. It's not been scheduled for this week, but it could certainly be introduced. There's been no movement on the Senate version. So as you know, Senate committee has to pass their version, and then the two will be reconciled in conference. So a lot left to go on that bill. It's not a done deal. It could pass. It could fail if they don't come to agreement in conference. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Another big bill this week for us was the Next Gen 911 bill that was heard in both houses on the same day. Commissioner Wantz, as you probably know, testified in favor of the bill. There were no opponents to the bill, which is a good thing. It looks like it'll have a much easier time in the Senate. There were a number of questions that were posed in the House committee, as you heard. But I think everyone's pretty confident. They're going to stay vigilant, though, and keep working it. But I think they're confident that they're going to get that through. One of the bills I've been following for you is the same-day voting registration that did pass in the House, and that's in the Senate committee now. So we'll have to see how that goes. Interestingly, there's a bill that proposes a polystyrene ban across the state. That has passed the Senate committee, so it's not gone to the Senate floor. Yeah, I raised that because I know it's one of the issues that Mr. Frazier is interested in. The interesting part of that is it requires the county to enforce it. So either through your health department or your environment department, you would enforce it. So have to see how that moves through as well.
I apologize, just real quick, the same-day voting, you believe that's going to make its way through?
Yes, because that was the result of a referendum.
Do we, have we figured out the cost that's going to have on Carroll County, the resources that is going to be in addition to that? I guess it's not a question to you, but I mean for us in recognizing what the additional cost is going to be.
Yeah, I guess that's Board of Elections would
Right.
develop that, right?
Yeah,
It'd be, I think, good to know if we can reach out to them and say, okay, now that we believe this will pass, do the formula and figure out what is the additional cost that's going to be associated with this referendum. Because,
Yeah, we'll reach out to Katie, see if
Okay.
there's a fiscal note attached to that.
Yeah, a little hard to predict, I would think, because
Yeah,
what
it
you're
probably
talking about
is.
is someone that's going to register to
Right.
vote. So
yeah, but I mean, with their analysis,
you
you
can
know.
use some
and-
projections
Yeah,
from
exactly.
what registration.
We should work off
She
of.
could probably
projections.
ballpark you.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Also, the related bill is the bill that would require the ballot marking devices in for every voter. That's being heard today in the Senate committee. Yesterday, restoration of health department funding, which is one of MACO's initiatives, was heard yesterday, and I understand Ed Singer testified in favor of that. And the House version is going to be heard next year. The solar property tax exemption, we talked about that, exempting from property tax and imposing a fee. That received an unfavorable report. So I know that that's not a direct impact to you yet, but it may be going forward.
You say that it received unfavorable?
Yes, yes. And the bill for the special pension treatment for injured police, fire, EMS, that's also being heard today. That's actually Delegate Lasanti is the lead sponsor of that, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. I would assume one of the co-sponsors would pick up
Yeah, I would
if she
think-
if she
yeah.
does wind up
I would think that
Leaving.
somebody else will take the lead on that,
leaving the assembly.
the way it sounds.
The medical presumption bills were heard Tuesday. Those are the ones that add certain cancers to the existing diseases that are assumed to be a result of occupation firefighters. No report on, no vote yet from the committees on those. Delegate Rose has a bill to set aside $48 million of the Kerwin, what I'm calling the Kerwin Fund, to be distributed, $2 million to each county to use for their CTE programs. That will be heard today. And what we call the attorney's fees bill, which Access to Maryland Courts Act, that'll be heard this week as well. Next week, I think the ones that are of interest here is Senator Hester's Innovative Schools, the regional school approach bill is going to be heard Wednesday. Delegate Parrott's minimum wage bill is also going to be heard next week. Interesting that the Rural Counties Coalition doesn't appear that they are going to weigh in on that bill. I think it's still up in the air, but I reached out to the chair of that, and it doesn't appear to be a lot of appetite for doing that based on what happened with that language trying to be amended onto the bill the other day. And the House version of the local health department funding bill it's going to be heard next week. So I know we have limited time today, and I'll just
Going
open it
back to
up.
the schools, is it co-sponsored, the Senator Hester bill has been co-sponsored
With Senator Reedy.
with Senator Reedy?
Yes.
Correct, okay. That's- It was like the softball, I knew that, so I wanted to make sure we knew that.
Checking, right?
Got it.
And I had told her it would be advisable to reach out to the Maryland Association of Boards of Ed, and she was going to do that. She asked if I wanted to be included in the meeting. I said I'm happy to be there. I haven't heard anything yet, so I don't know. I'm sure she's very, very busy. But that was my recommendation, since it is a statewide bill. You might want to have them weigh in. You'd hate to have somebody show up that day to oppose it.
Yeah.
Talk to 'em.
Was that cross-filed or not?
It was not.
Okay.
Could you,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about, where are we at with this, House Bill 190, the septic?
Yes, it has not.
Cesspool, septic, that,
Right, that was amended, but it has not come out of committee yet.
okay, okay,
And that was, did not have a cross-file either.
right, okay,
Which is usually a sign.
yep.
Sometimes it's a strong indication.
Yeah.
could you give us an update on HB 166 that we talked about yesterday a little bit?
Yeah, that's the minimum wage bill.
Yeah, and that's-
The portion of concern by your
Yeah.
constituent with the ARC was that reduction in funding. Now, again, I remember at Summer Mako, Senator Peters, who was the majority leader until this year, made it clear that he didn't give us a number, but he said an increase to the workers for the developmentally disabled would be a critical part of that legislation. Well, it is not now, apparently. That 7% that was initially proposed has been reduced back to the 3%. So I still think there's an awful lot of politics going on with this bill. I'm just not sure how that's going to, it's still in the Senate version. So that dynamic has got to play out. The committee has not considered, the Senate committee has not considered the bill yet. It's finance. They've not voted. I shouldn't say they haven't considered, they haven't voted yet. Probably waiting to see what happened in the House. So I think those are heavy amendments by the Economic Matters Committee. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in finance and then what happens when it gets to the Senate floor. We're looking pretty far ahead to talk about conference committee, but I think that the advocates for the development of disabled workers are going to descend on the Senate pretty strongly, I would think. Many of these amendments, the committee amendments, were because of affordability. They got a fiscal note that was, I think, not what they were expecting. So that's why I think that 7% was reduced so significantly. And there's no BRFA bill, so there's talk of a revenue write-down in the coming weeks. So there's going to be some reconciliation that occurs. We heard at Mako yesterday that really none of the major initiatives for the counties are going to be, are proposed. DLS has made that proposal. I think that somewhere up to $350 million is the possibility. So the DLS is developing a couple of scenarios in advance of that write-down coming.
The other one that we highlighted, I think it was last week, was the intent to establish a commission focused on solar,
Yes.
and that the need, again, I'm looking at long-term effects of some of these bills and some of these commissions, that we, although may not agree with it being established, the value of us participating in a commission like that to make sure our voices are heard for the goodness of our community. Has that gone anywhere?
It hasn't. The amendment was proposed
Okay.
to add, I think, an additional member let Mako choose the member as opposed to having, either the commission or the assembly choose a representative. So no, that has not advanced.
I mean, obviously, we just want our fair share and ensure that we have the strong representation of the rural communities and our community, and it's not forced down our throat from the city and Prince George and Montgomery. So,
Exactly, and I think
okay.
that's why they wanted two representatives, one urban, suburban, one rural.
Okay.
And again, I think the intent of the bill is to try to address that dichotomy that exists with the environmental
Yep.
advocates that
Right.
want solar but also want to preserve natural resources.
Yep.
So I think the intent of the bill is probably good, but as they say, the devil's in the details. And certainly the local zoning priority, everyone agrees that that has to remain. That's
Correct.
preeminent.
Absolutely. Cool.
Anything else? Just two things, and since we have a deputy director hiding in the corner of the room, I'll give him a little bit of homework to do. There are two bills, Mike, that we discussed at MACO yesterday, two House bills having to do with electricians.
Yes.
House Bill 792, and Jason's already nodding his head, and House Bill 905. One of them has to do with journeyman license, and the other one has to do with low voltage. So I know we discussed this on a county level as to the ability for folks to be able to do certain things without pulling a permit, Jason. So just want to make sure that this doesn't affect what that decision would be, or perhaps maybe we need to relook at that based on what we're seeing coming out of these two House bills. So I'll put that on your radar. And apparently it's already on, so that's good.
Yeah, and I'll
I love it when staff, yeah.
get with
yeah.
Jason, he'll
Okay.
educate me on that.
And other than that, out of MACO yesterday, I will say that we were there till what, 1 o'clock? Mike, it was a long day. We had 8 pages of bills.
After missing last week.
Right. So there's, and I make light of some of these things, but we tackled everything from nuisance insects, which I'll give you that bill because you'd love to see that one, Dick, to massage therapists, to some opioid restitution funding. We ran the gamut yesterday. It made your head spin until we got done. So, so there's a lot going on. And I will say that Mike's on top of all that, and we do appreciate having you on the ground down there because with the speed at which things are happening, it's just no way to keep track of it. So,
Yeah, it's an awful lot.
and the atmosphere now is a little toxic as well with, unfortunately, some behavioral issues down there as well. So, so we'll see,
Yeah,
where all
that
that
tends to get
leads.
in the way of the good work that needs to be done.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. So, all right, anything else for Mike?
No.
All right, very good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mike.
it.
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda, request approval for transfer of funds for the Freedom Park surfacing project. And our Director of Rec and Parks, Jeff Daggett. Good morning again, Jeff.
Good morning again. Last year, we had a capital project. We replaced the surfacing at Freedom Park under the swings and the climbing rock. The project was originally funded by both a capital project for that purpose and park restoration, which is used to maintain our park infrastructure. All the work's been completed. The bills were paid in January. At this point, we're looking to try to capture all of the expenditures in one account. So we are requesting a transfer of $7,230 from Recreation and Parks unallocated to the Freedom Park Play Service. That way, everything's captured in that one account.
Well, I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the transfer of $7,230 from the Rec and Parks unallocated to Freedom Park Play Surface for the entirety of the rubber safety surface project at Freedom Park.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Aye. That was easy.
Thank you very much. I'll try not to drag it out so long the next day.
Yeah.
You've had a positive day so
Got it.
far.
Quit while you're ahead, right?
We're on item
Okay. Next on our agenda is airport financing. Public comment on this,
3. Yes.
Ms. Wyndham?
Ms. Mary Kowalski. Go ahead.
Am I the only one?
Yep.
Okay. With that being the fact, I'd like to ask that my time be extended.
No.
No?
Yep.
Okay. You can start the clock. I see it's already started. I'd like to just make a quick comment about that. You know, we in the public, and I've been coming for years and years, I guess 12 years to meetings, and it used to be back then that they didn't have a time limit. And we sat in a little room. It was like a cafeteria table, and we actually came up and sat on the other side of the table. It was as if this little table here, and the commissioners on one side and us on the other. And it was friendly, it was community friendly, and you had an hour or whatever every Thursday morning. The public could come in and talk about any issue, and you could sit there, and they certainly didn't put up a 3-minute time limit. So I just want to say, I know you have a busy agenda this morning, but when only one citizen is signed up to talk, I really think there ought to be latitude there. I really do. You know, you all have, I guess you call it the bully pulpit or whatever. You can sit here, and I've seen meetings go on until 6 at night. You usually take time to stop to eat. But, you know, to cut a citizen off at 3 minutes, I have some concerns about that. So anyway, here I go. I want to talk about this airport issue. And I can't believe it's like this is year 13 and the citizens are still fighting it. You know, we put in over 1,000 signatures against it. The public doesn't want it. The public doesn't need it. That's the bottom line. And I talked to Jeff Topper, I don't know, quite a while back, and I said, is there any opportunity? Is there going to be any more public hearings, any more public meetings? No. No. No opportunity for public input, other than to sort of come in at these little things like this and try to talk for a couple minutes. It's wrong. It's very wrong. This has been a controversial issue. The Board of Commissioners, past boards have gone in favor, against. Now here we have today an issue of a bond for millions, 12 million. Now some of that's supposed to be up for reimbursement, I get it, but even with federal and state, millions and millions of dollars are expected from the citizens of Carroll County. For what? I don't have an airplane, okay? Most of the people I know don't have an airplane, but you're asking that my tax dollars go to make that airport bigger. They expanded the airport in the 90s. They told everybody it's the last expansion. Everybody was against it, but they said, don't worry, it's the last one. We're not coming back. Here we are. We came back a few years later. Bingo. We want to make it bigger. Bigger jets. You're going to push this to a Category 3 that brings in 737s. Like it or not, that's the category. We don't want it. And more impervious surface. You know, I talked to somebody that works for Carroll County government. They said that's all the flooding problems in Ellicott City. Too much impervious surface. You're going to affect the people that live in that area. Now, here we go. You're going to cut me off mid-sentence, I'm sure. But there's hidden costs. We had 4 people die.
Thank you.
Cutting me off mid-surface.
Yes, thank you.
It's not right, people,
Thank you.
and we're going to continue to fight it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is request authority authorizing resolution and declaration of intent to reimburse expenditures. Rob, I'll let you introduce those that you're bringing with you. Rob Burke, our comptroller. And a couple other familiar faces.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Joined this morning with the county's bond counsel, Mr. Dave Gregory of McKinnon, Shelton, and Henn, and by financial advisors Davenport and Company by Mr. Joe Mason.
Morning, Joe.
Familiar to you in the past, or to the 2 new commissioners. These are our financial professionals involved when we do a bond financing. We are distributing to you a bond authorizing resolution that will pertain to the airport in a maximum amount of $12 million. So you're aware that the airport isn't approved in the capital improvement plan. It's a $88 million total project, the majority, 95%, to be funded by Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and the Maryland Aviation Administration, the MAA. So the majority of those dollars are going to be covered by the FAA and the MAA. What we've come to realize is the timing with which we spend dollars and with which they reimburse us would be problematic in that we'll be ramping up spending in the early part of the project, and it will take some years until they kind of ramp up the reimbursements to come back. So we're going to have a sort of a deficit spending for a while in the airport fund. And so this will put in place the financing to be able to cover that, the cash flows of those reimbursements. So it's our anticipation that the first several years, as we're spending for land acquisition, design, and beginning construction, we would draw down on this. This will authorize up to $12 million, but we will draw on it as needed. So we'll kind of match the spending. And then we believe at some point that'll turn and the reimbursements will be coming in faster than our spending, and that we will begin to be able to reimburse ourselves basically and bring the sort of cash back in line. So this is contemplated to be only for the airport. The proceeds will go right into the Airport Enterprise Fund. The debt will be carried in the on the balance sheet of the Airport Enterprise Fund. The repayment will come from proceeds within the Airport Enterprise Fund. So this is not going to be in with other of our bonds in terms of tax repayment.
So it's not going to be taxpayer money paying for this? It's Airport Enterprise Fund?
Not Carroll County
Right.
tax revenue.
And
Obviously, federal aviation, MA.
Right.
That sort of
The other
thing.
95%
Correct.
comes from
Correct.
state and federal.
Now, there is a component of the funding of the airport project which is the county's responsibility.
Right.
And some of that will be debt, and that will come up in future bond issues just as we do normally.
But my understanding of even that 5% that we're responsible for, that's going to come out of the Airport Enterprise Fund and not come out of taxpayer money either.
Correct.
Just want to make that
Right.
point. since-
Everything's segregated into
Right.
the enterprise fund.
So we're getting an $88 million project for about a $4.4 million investment through that enterprise fund.
Correct.
Not a bad deal.
So why would we not do this?
Well, we already are.
I mean, but.
This is just the financial part of it.
Right.
But, because that ship has sailed, just for the
Right.
two new commissioners. And, I will say that at nauseam, we've heard about this, and the decision was really made before the three of us. This was the 59th board that that really made this decision. So, and I want to point out, and I've said this to many folks, as a matter of fact, I had meetings with several folks that live out near me that were concerned about it 4 or 5 years ago. And, I liken it to enhancement and not expansion. We're enhancing it, and when one of my best friends who just got his pilot's license explained to me why our runway, both landing and taking off, is so dangerous, case closed. Done talking about it now. So I didn't want to cut you off,
No,
Commissioner
I
Rothstein,
appreciate-
but the whole project is a done deal. So this is now the financial part of where we're
Yeah.
going to handle it.
And
So-
that's kind of where I was going is, and I do appreciate it. We were talking about enhancing the airport. We're not talking about expansion. We're not talking about changing the facilities currently at the airport to another grade of facilities,
So-
correct? Is that
Yeah,
a
that's
true statement?
That's true, and
This-
but part of it, you want to take this, Scott? I mean, I will say that as a part of the enhancement, we are expanding the runway.
Runway.
But that's
for safety.
That's
Yes.
because of the safety thing.
Right.
So kind of hand in hand.
No, and I appreciate it, and I just want, before I ask Guy, I appreciate you giving me more insight. Again, looking at the vision of our community, of our county, and the use of this airport, that we are not going into an expansion role of this airport where it's not lies within the vision of the county. This, so the enhancements are for safety, I appreciate it. So go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, what we're doing for this upgrade is to bring it to today's standards.
There you go.
It's going to make it safe for everybody flying today.
With the same size planes and jets.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
had to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Yep.
nothing's.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
right.
nothing's changing.
Right.
No passenger terminals or lines and gates and whatever. This is mainly,
Yeah.
this is merely the safety of our folks that utilize the airport. That's what this is.
And if our
So-
vision is to increase the quality of life for our community, this goes hand in hand with doing that. I mean, that's kind of my understanding. I mean, safety obviously is very important to this.
And oh, by the way, with that, we are going to see some economic boom because the fact that we have
Opportunities.
enhancing the ability to be able to come in there safely. We've had several folks already reach out and say, okay, so we're seeing it's an advantage all across the board. So and you reminded me that we should have given you probably a little bit of an update for you two, you
Yeah.
guys. Just so, I hope that puts it in a nutshell. But that's where we are. So,
Okay.
All right. So,
you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Okay.
so the improvements are being made to the runway, the taxiway, the core general use portion of the facility. The county derives no revenue directly from the runway itself. There are no fees for landing, takeoff, anything like that. Everything out there is sort of ancillary to business services out there that kind of generates revenue. So we do anticipate it being a tax exempt financing as a government asset without private activity benefit. So we're contemplating an up to $12 million tax exempt financing, but we are going to have a little different approach to this financing. Instead of our typical, structured financing, and we'll go out and simply get the bid for lowest rate, the best rate, and that's our winner. In this case, we'll be looking to do a private placement, so we'll be soliciting financial institutions to respond to our needs with their structure and product that they think meets our needs best. And we'll evaluate those and determine which of those we believe is in our best interest. So it's a slightly different process. This is authorizing today for us to initiate this process, and so that we can share with those institutions that the board has authorized the issuance of debt. But in this authorizing resolution is the requirement that we come back to the board to award the final product and the bidder, so we'll have one more time to make sure, okay, now this is what we've got, this is what we're the structure we're going to proceed with, and we'll be able to lay that out for the board maybe in the next 60 days or so is kind of the plan.
Anything else I missed?
I'll share it with you.
No, sure. Happy.
Again, two of the three pillars that I've discussed, safety and security, and then business economic development and growth where it makes sense. This has an impact on those two. So it's a good news story that we're trying to take care, again, of our community and those that are using the airport now in a more safe, secure manner. And then, as Commissioner Wance shared, more opportunity for business economic growth and development where it makes sense. So, very positive.
I'm not going to let this go without hearing from you, Joe. So, the process that we are going through here, when it comes to our rating folks, we're good with this, with the way in which we're going to do this, in your
Yes.
in your
it's not
spectacular opinion, because I know you're on top of this. So
I appreciate those kind words, sir. It's very common for counties in Maryland, local governments in Maryland, to enter into what's called a direct bank loan. It's otherwise called a private placement, but it's a negotiated financing with a bank. The size of this financing is not such, and the timing of the need. We want to be able to, if we're going to be spending dollars in this fiscal year, the thought would be that we'd like some ability to be able to have this facility in place so that You're not seeing a bunch of county dollars go out the door, and therefore your fund balance, which you know from the rating meetings is a very important element. We haven't put so much money out the door that we're not yet getting reimbursed from the FAA or MAA, that it looks like our fund balance is worse than it is. So this product, if you will, this financing allows us to turn that into temporary debt until such time as we get those reimbursements, and then the rating agencies will be very comfortable with that, because it's not going to, you're not going to show that big hit to your fund balance.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And there's really no time period that the reimbursement would go on the radar. I mean, it's say it takes, I don't know, however many years to be reimbursed. That's all part of this plan.
Yeah, you effectively, you've got a project approval from the FAA to fund it. It's just the timing of when those dollars are coming back to you is a little uncertain. I mean, we can say that it's going to be probably more likely than not over 5 to 8 years, but we can't say for certain. So this is a vehicle that allows us to create some flexibility to be able to deal with those uncertainties.
Okay.
I mean, you have a temporary loan that has a AAA takeout, if you will, from the federal government.
Right.
We just don't know exactly when it's going to occur.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm going to ask bond counsel to
Right.
sort of walk you through the resolution here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pleasure to be here with you this morning. David Gregory from McKenna, Shelton and Henn, bond counsel to the county. And as Mr. Burke and Mr. Mason have presented this morning, this resolution provides for a bond to be issued in an amount up to $12 million in a direct placement bank solicitation proceeding, under which the county will ask various financial institutions to submit proposals. And we would come back to this board, as Rob has mentioned, at a later date and ask for a formal award of the financial institution that has been selected to purchase the facility. And so there will not be, this will not be the only opportunity for us to be in front of the board on this issue. We'll be back. The request for proposals will ask the banks to provide their proposed interest rate, the maturity date, any other provisions that those bidders may want to include in their proposal, and we will review them and come back to the board with what we believe to be the offer, the best offer, and ask for approval for the bond to be issued and sold to that purchaser. We, as Mr. Burke mentioned, the intent is to issue the bond as a tax-exempt obligation, as is the case with many or most of the county's currently outstanding bond issues. It would likewise be a tax-exempt obligation for federal income tax purposes. Are there any questions? It's a fairly short resolution as compared to the competitively sold bond issues, but much of that has to do with our being in a direct bank placement transaction as opposed to a competitive bid transaction in the public market.
Yeah, we're only 5.5 pages.
Right.
I'm kind of, I'm like, what?
Light
Wait,
reading
what?
Thursday morning, right?
Any questions from my colleagues?
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt the airport bond authorization resolution as presented by the bond counsel.
I'll second. No, please.
Okay, any other thoughts on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. While I got you, Joe, what's the atmosphere like? I'm going to take the opportunity to pick your brain a little bit. We're getting ready to go into our budget. We keep hearing from the state and, you know, from those that are in the know that expect some sort of recession. And I think there are those that have already went out and pinpointed the month and year. What kind of feel do you have for the near future here as we move forward?
Well, as you know, I'm not an economist, so.
I know that, but.
My crystal ball is not
Right.
as shiny. You know, I think that's the preponderance of opinion out there is that, I mean, you think we're maybe not quite there yet, but we're rapidly approaching the point at which this is the largest, it's not largest, longest, I should say, economic expansion that we've seen in the post, you know, World War era. So, you know, economic cycles exist. They always have. And so, you know, I think preparing for what is eventually going, you know, what goes up must come down. And so I can't tell you exactly when. I've heard anywhere from later this year to next calendar year.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, going into it with your eyes wide open is a worthwhile thing to do. I mean, it speaks to the very issue that we're doing this financing, is let's not burn through a bunch of fund balance. Even if we know we're going to get reimbursed, let's keep our powder dry. You know, I think that's the prudent way to go, is to exactly when and the magnitude of such a downturn. That's beyond my capacity to judge.
Yeah. Okay, I'll call you next week. Okay. hang on. All right, Joe, thank you. David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always good to see you guys. We
Good to see
appreciate
you.
it. Rob, thank you. Before we all get out of here, Scott, just for the two new colleagues, do you want to introduce the two gentlemen that are sitting beside you, just to make sure that everybody knows the faces to the names here, please?
Okay.
So.
Joe McKelvey, he's been our chief person for, how long you been here now? 11 years. 11 years. He's retiring in about a month. So this is good timing. Hate to see him go, but we have a good backup right behind him with Mark Myers, who took the position, and he started a week or two ago. We're bringing him up to speed. So you can welcome him aboard. Thank you.
Titles of airport manager.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure you guys know that, because, you know, we'll be seeing more and more of Mark, obviously, as we move through this. And probably a good opportunity now, Joe, because I don't know if we'll get that opportunity to thank you. This has been an interesting 11 years. And I think you would be the first to say that it's been it has. So I want to thank you on behalf, and I know my colleagues too. Dennis, I know you've worked very hard on this project as well, and we do appreciate everything, Joe, that your heart and soul and everything that you've put into it out there. So thank you very much.
Quick comment with Dennis.
Come over to the mic, Joe. Yeah.
Quick comment for Dennis. He covered the who's paying for the project. He's got it. He knows it's federal, state, and enterprise fund, and the funds come out of the enterprise fund. And as Rob also mentioned the same thing, but that's extremely important. It's been that since day one for 11 years now, or 12 years, but it's never changed.
Right.
But thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Enjoy your retirement.
Hey.
Thank you for everything you've done, and I appreciate, especially thank you for your explanation of everything when we got together and met about the airport. It was very helpful to me. Thank you.
And Mark, I know you'll carry that torch, so we appreciate it. Big party at one of the hangars, Joe? Huh?
He walks away. Hangar dance.
Yeah, okay.
Let me check
All right.
my emails.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Next on the agenda, bid approval of Economic Development Office renovation work. And Jason, this is a wonderful opportunity to officially introduce Justin, because I know our calendars are jammed up. I think you were talking about maybe next week, but why don't you come to the mic and make this official, because got a lot of great comments about this young man, and I want everybody to know who he is. So
Sure. Justin McDonald, recently named the Bureau Chief of Facilities. So he brings a lot of experience to that department, and we're all looking forward to working with him in this new capacity. So congratulations, Justin.
welcome aboard.
Welcome.
So
Thank you.
already had him around the table last week for a snow event, and looks like we're going to roll again on that,
Yes,
Justin.
we are.
And it's always good, you know, you look at things different ways. You either bring folks in from the outside or you promote from within. In this case, Justin, you have been with the county now for
15 years.
So this is a classic case of promoting from within, and we are very fortunate to have you on board and look forward to what you bring to the table. So
I'm ready to go with it.
there you go. So I'll let you roll. Marlene, you leading this charge, or
Yes.
Maureen? I'm sorry. So
Yes, we went, since the Economic Development Office needed some renovation work, we had term contracts on. And we asked for them to quote on this job, and we got 5 responses back, and the low bidder was Nussbaum and Ott in the amount of $31,670, and we're asking you to concur that we award that project.
Okay. You want to explain what's going on down there a little bit? And-
Yeah, what we have down there is we have 9 rooms, 1 hallway, a lobby, restroom, conference room, and the bulkhead all around the whole Office of Economic Development. We budgeted $37,000 for this particular job. We came under $5,300, and it's going to be wallpapering. We allotted, how much was that? That $25 a square yard for wallpapering down there, and it's going to be, if we are accepted the money, we will follow up with Economic Development to go through which wallpaper they would like to install down in their area. And there's an allotment of $25 a square yard.
I mean, coming under 17% of what your budget, 15, 17, 18% is fantastic, you know, on this bid. So I, for one, appreciate that. Anytime you can come under budget, so
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah.
So we'll introduce also.
Yeah, this is Thad Highlander. He is our project manager for facilities. He's been with the county now 7 months.
Just about 6.
Just about 6 months.
Seems like 7, but just about 6.
But he's our project manager, and he's been very helpful for the facility.
So welcome aboard to you too.
Thanks,
And
sir.
just a little note here on this wallpaper selection. If any of the wallpaper comes in with Liburn's face on it, it's going to be rejected immediated. Got it? That
Yes, sir.
got it? Okay.
Got it.
Just lunch. Okay.
Well, Thad, any man that wears a Carhartt coat with a tie has my respect.
Trying to give 2 images, hope it works.
It works very well.
Some would say that's bipolar. No.
All right. Any other questions?
No, I move the Board of Commissioners award the contract for renovation work in Economic Development Office be awarded to Nussbaum and Ott in the amount of $31,670.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Have a good
Thank
luck.
you.
Yep.
I didn't know people still use wallpaper.
Well, yeah, you do. Jack. All right. Next on the agenda, grant application 2020 census. And who knew, right, Linda? So I'll let you run this show, Linda. Our Director of Planning, Linda Eisenberg. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have with me today Christine Kay, Director of Citizen Services, and Debbie Staniford, who is our grants manager. And I want to say thank you to both of these ladies and Celine Steckel for helping us put together this grant application. So, as you know, next year's 2020, and it's also a census year.
Be here next week.
Yeah, before we know it will be. And the census is a really important counting of all the citizens, not only in the state but in the country, and it determines where funding will be distributed nationally. So about 2 weeks ago, Maryland Department of Planning issued a release for grant opportunities to help with local jurisdictions to market the census, especially to reach hard-to-reach populations that have typically been underserved and perhaps undercounted. So that was really the intent and purpose of this grant. So we had a very quick turnaround time to put this application in. It's due tomorrow. That's why we're here before you today to request for the grant, to apply for the 2020 census grant from the state to support county census outreach efforts. It is put on the counties by the federal government to market for your local jurisdiction the best way to reach out to your community. And in 2010, the federal government provided funding and materials. This time around, the state last year, in 2018, the legislature set aside $5 million for local jurisdictions to take advantage of grant opportunities to do the same thing that the federal government had previously done in 2010. So we are applying for a $40,000 grant that requires a 100% match. We are requesting a $20,000 cash match be put in the FY 2020 budget, and we will supply an additional match of $20,000 in-kind efforts, totaling the $40,000 match. So we believe with staff and volunteer time, which volunteers can be counted toward the in-kind match, that we'll be able to make up the $20,000 match over the next year or so. The census does rely heavily on local and state governments to get the word out regarding taking the census. This grant will help fund marketing efforts to get a complete count as possible for Carroll County. This was interesting to note that in 2010, Carroll is one of the top performing counties in the nation with an 83% response rate. The state overall had a 74% response rate. So as always, Carroll overachieves, and that's wonderful, but we still have 17% that we're not reaching, and we want to make sure we get as close to 100% count as possible, and that's why we need to do these marketing and outreach efforts. Staff is working on putting together a complete count committee, which I will be talking to you about, Commissioner Wance, and how to put that committee together to help with census outreach. These are individuals in the county that represent various targeted groups, including but not limited to education, faith-based, homeless, elderly, immigrants, and youth. And we have met with our local county rep from the census and other county agencies to begin putting this effort together. And that's why we have Christine and Celine as part of this effort. They have many contacts in all of those communities to help us reach out to them to help put this committee together and distribute these grant funds so we can have a really robust marketing effort. As in 2010, the 20 census will be web-based, which may not be accessible to many residents of the county. This grant will help supply supplemental technology, and one of the things that we're requesting in our grant application are iPad purchases, so we can have kiosks at locations that do not have computers, such as our libraries and senior centers, but looking at other areas to distribute these iPads so that way citizens that don't have access to technology or poor internet service or just need help taking the census electronically will be available to them. And again, as I said, this will supplement what we have in our senior centers and our libraries. So with that, are there any questions with regards to the grant application?
You said the application is due tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Did we not know?
Correct. We didn't know till February 11th that this was even an option. So as soon as we got word of it, we got on putting together this group, and Debbie was instrumental in preparing this grant, and we all, as well as others within the county, tried to get the dollars together because we had to research what we were going to need and how much things were going to cost.
So with that said, I really appreciate the proactiveness that your team is taking going after this grant in very short notice, because I do understand it's, one, its importance, but also it takes a lot to put these things together. So I really appreciate putting the package together in very quick time and coming in front of us. So,
I just need 24 hours to think about it.
You have 23.
Whenever you get hit with dual directors, you know, there's something going on. So,
Bring out the big guns here.
Just got to say. So let's talk about the money a minute, just to make sure that we know where it's coming from again, because you're asking for 20 of a county match.
Correct.
So hit that again, just so we understand.
So this was a dollar for dollar match.
Okay.
And the ranges that the state said we could apply for were from $25,000 to $250,000. So looking at the marketing needs that we could potentially need, and again, this is a best guesstimate based on the short notice and kind of coming together, coalescing our thoughts and thinking about what would be necessary to get this word out. We came up with the $80,000 that would be necessary to pull this off, essentially. And so we're requesting $40,000 from the state of Maryland to help offset our costs. And we would request a $20,000 cash match be put in the FY 2020 budget, because we feel any more than a $20,000 in kind, we may not be able to hit that target billing staff and volunteer hours. Now, they were generous by even allowing volunteer time, and they gave us an hourly wage guesstimate for what a volunteer's time would be worth to help offset that cost. But we were just afraid we may get into a position where we just don't have enough hours to meet a larger in-kind match, and felt that cash was also necessary to help pay for some of the marketing materials that would be necessary, such as mailings, posters, working to put advertising on our transit buses and things like that.
You know, again, that's great, using innovation, understanding the cost of volunteers, putting that into the package, and not just the dollars. So, really applaud that.
So if we don't get the $80,000, we'll still have the $20,000 for the volunteer services and so
Correct.
forth. So our cash match will actually go down at that
Correct.
point. Depends on
Well,
what they
our
give us.
in-kind would go, if we don't get the grant, then we have $20,000 to put toward county efforts then. I mean, I'm going to be very optimistic that we're going to, we put a very nice grant package together that's very competitive, and I think the idea from the state was that every jurisdiction will get something to help, because they know that we need to promote this effort, and it's in the state's best interest that every jurisdiction have the most accurate count as possible.
Is completion of the census to every citizen mandatory?
I want to believe that you're mandated to take it, but whether you take it or not, that's optional. I mean, they do, what they do is they send out 5 letters. The first letter is census, and it goes to every household. And in that household, doesn't matter how many different, I should say every residency, every household in that residence takes the same census. You're going to count for everyone who is at your dwelling as of April 1st, 2020. If you don't take it, so many weeks after that, they send another letter saying, we need you to take it. And then they send a 3rd letter. Then they send a 4th letter with the actual paper census. And if you still don't receive it, they send out a 5th letter. And then finally, they actually send someone to your door, a numerator, to come and actually physically count.
Is that you?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going door to door.
And the census is doing a robust hiring effort right now, and I believe Burke is going to be having a census hiring job fair soon as well. So.
Well, you know, is it then mandatory they fill it out, or you're going to get some people
The
saying?
grant, you're saying? You're saying as a
condition of the grant, or
No,
just
for
every citizen?
the people actually filling the census. I can just hear some people saying,
Well, I mean, no, it's not mandatory. I mean, the
Yeah.
federal government isn't
Yeah.
gonna come and arrest you if you don't.
Well, some things are
They're not
more-
gonna fine
yeah,
you, or,
yeah.
you know, I mean, for the hundreds of years that we've been doing this, it's,
I
you know, every
understand
10
that.
years.
I just wanted
they
to ask,
have-
so sometimes it
Right.
says right on the
Well, but
thing,
the
mandatory or
more
not.
people who do it,
Yeah,
the better
yeah.
off everyone is. So
Yeah.
it's in everyone's best interest to do it, and so they're trying to get the word out that way, that, you know.
Well, that's why you said state was 74%, that's why I was asking.
Right. Well, it's hard. And actually, the most undercounted population are children ages 0 to 4, because a lot of times someone gets it and they fill it out for themselves, not thinking about everyone else in their household. And that's part of this marketing and outreach effort, is to educate people on why to take the census, how to take the census, and one thing that the census representative was telling us is the privacy measures. I mean, when it goes to the census, it stays within the census, and they have robust security measures to help ensure that your information that you give to the Census Bureau is kept private.
No, but I believe the intent is to give every opportunity for every citizen within the community, or county, in this case, the county, to take the census, and, you know, because the best representation, you know.
It's a good question,
Yeah.
Dick, it is, but, and you know, you kind of hit on a point that there are going to be those that are absolutely against doing this.
Right.
Because in today's world, well, I'm just.
I think there always have been.
Yes. Conspiracies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you know.
Sort of three
just-
camps,
Just
those
to make
folks-
sure I don't get in trouble, I'm going to just stop.
Yeah, there are those who just automatically do it.
Yeah.
There are those who don't even know about it and are missed.
Yeah. Supposed to be
And then
said
those who would refuse to do it no matter how
Right.
much you try to educate.
Right.
For the 100 or so people out there in TV land that are watching this, I like to emphasize.
Thousand.
Thousand.
Thank you.
I like to emphasize how critically important the census is for our future representation in both the National Legislative Congress and our General Assembly. It's something I'm very passionate about. And those individuals that don't want to take this are actually hurting our community and restricting the proper representation that we will receive in those legislative institutions. So this is extremely critical. I'm very supportive that you guys took the
Thank
initiative to do this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that PSA.
Yeah, so we'll come and record you for the commercial that we are doing. You got it, the script and all.
That's the first outreach.
Yes, exactly, thank you.
Now there's 10% of the people going, who? What? Wait. Just an interesting part of this. I know that there are faith-based that have done homeless counts, haven't they?
Actually, we do it, the point-in-time count.
Okay, so a little maybe ahead of the game because you got those numbers or not? Maybe, I don't know. What help?
Maybe, I mean, we'll do another point in time next January.
Okay.
And we'll do outreach, you know, at human service programs, Access Carol, Citizen Services.
Okay.
As folks come in to take the census survey.
Okay.
I'm not- to be honest, I don't know if they reach out to agencies and ask for counts. I don't know if the census reaches out to agencies like that and asks for count, or if I think it's more of an individual.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else? I'll
No.
entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
All right. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the submission and acceptance of the 2020 census grant and provide $20,000 in matching funds in the fiscal year 2020 budget.
Second.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your support, I
Great, thank you.
appreciate
Thank-
it.
Great
Thank
job.
you for
Yeah,
being so
and as
prompt.
Commissioner Rothstein said, thank you for your hard work last minute on this, too.
You're welcome.
Especially you, Deb, because I know it
Yes.
ain't easy putting
Couldn't have
these
done it.
grants together, so
Thank you.
you're good at what you do. Thank you. All right, next item, state assistance for broadband feasibility study funding. Mr. Mark Ripper, our Director of Tech Services.
Morning, Commissioners. I also have with me today Ms. Karen Jacoda from the Budget Office. This is the first time I've ever applied for a grant, so Karen has been very instrumental in helping me put this together and get the proposal. And
What took you so long, Mark?
never had the opportunity before, sir.
Okay.
All right. So what's happened is the state of Maryland has provided $2 million in their FY 2019 budget to the Department of Housing and Community Development to support the Office of Rural Broadband in its efforts to assist in the expansion of broadband to unserved rural areas of Maryland. And basically what they're doing is they're allowing up to...
Oh, I'm just whooping. Go
Whooping?
ahead, I'm
Good.
whooping. All right.
Okay. They are willing to provide up to a $60,000 match for the counties each county to do a study on where the broadband is at this point. And just to update the two commissioners, we really haven't talked about this since you've been on board. Several years ago, the state of Maryland formed the Maryland Rural Broadband Commission to study about getting broadband out into rural areas in Maryland. When they set that commission up, they ignored quite a few counties in the state of Maryland, Carroll being one of those, because we are not considered a rural county by definition, although we do have a tremendous number of rural areas that are lacking the broadband. Myself, as the president of the IT affiliate, along with some of my counterparts, approached the state of Maryland and the Rural Broadband Commission, and we are now included in that. And what this grant will give us the opportunity to do is it will give us an opportunity to do a real study on how much broadband is available in Carroll County. We actually wanted to do this about 7-8 years ago, and the cost at the time to do it was $60,000, and we did not have the money in the budget to be able to do that. So this is a real opportunity for us to do that. I know that seems rather expensive for a broadband study. You have
Pretty broad.
Looks like you have a question,
I
Commissioner.
do. How do we not know how much broadband we have available?
Because we do not know how many people DirecTV, Dish Network, even our local providers are doing. Companies who do these types of studies have the ability some way to be able to gather that information in some kind of aggregate form to let us know what's going on there.
Make it part of the census.
But I mean, we've asked them, right? We've reached out to the businesses and asked, and you have that discussion with them of who has and who does not, and where are those locations that are not, where broadband's not available. I would imagine.
We have, Commissioner, and they will not provide us that information because they consider it proprietary. Even with Comcast, which we have a contract with for 10 years because of cable television in Carroll County, and they're being able to use our right-ways, there is nothing in the law that requires them to give us that information, and they do not want to share it in any way where it gives any clue to competition. And the state is facing, it's not just Carroll County, the state's facing this issue, and that's why they're doing what they're doing with this grant program.
So it's just looking at what's available or people that are actually using it? Because I think that in my mind, it's two different things.
It is.
Because
And again, we won't know who's using it. It will be where it's available and who has access to what.
Then, I mean, if we have the lines and we have the fiber, whatever, we know where it's available, don't we? I just don't understand how this.
I'm not sure what you're asking there, Commissioner.
Well, we were looking at where broadband's available.
Right.
Okay, if we have fiber running down the street, we know it's available here. We already know that.
That's just for us, though. There are at least eight other providers out there that are providing high-speed internet access to the residents of Carroll County that we do not know about.
Really?
Like DirecTV, Dish Network, even Comcast we don't have.
Well, if
Verizon hotspots.
Right,
Verizon
Cell
hotspots.
phone hotspots.
then my guess is, I guess I'm confused because I think you're looking at the people that are actually using it, not what's available. Because, I don't know, it just seems that what you're asking is how many people are actually using DirecTV, and that's what you can't get, and I don't blame them for not telling you that, but if they're, you should know if it's available in a certain area.
No, we don't. They will not tell us that.
Well, if you see a dish outside somebody's house.
Well, that's true, right, that's correct, yes.
But it could be just television.
But it could,
See, you don't know whether they're getting internet.
Well, yeah, but then you're asking what they're actually getting, but they have the ability to get it if the dish is there.
right, keep in mind, this is looking at unserved, so this is exactly what we're looking for. We're looking at where it's available and where it's not available, not who's using it. If it's available to them and they've elected not to use it, that's not part of this. This is where are they not available?
So in my view, again, looking at quality
Sure.
of life and the importance of having as many folks within our community with the availability to have this type of service, internet service. There's not a whole lot down in the southern part of the county. There's a whole lot up in the northern part of the county. So it is an important, responsibility for us to reach out and find. My concern that you're saying, and I understand about proprietary information, I take it you've exhausted all means to reaching out to those providers, and they have just straight up said, yes, we will not provide you those maps of where we see broadband available or not available. Not about, because I agree with Commissioner Frazier, this is not about who's using it, it's about availability. And I believe that this county should have been already mapped out through those providers, and, it's
I
a
am telling you
competitiveness.
that, yes, they have been approached, and they will not give us a map of where they have services. The best we can do, Commissioner, just so that you understand, everybody does have to file with the FCC, who provides internet service, and the FCC can give us some indication of where service might be. But here's the problem. Everything is broken up into, and I don't remember the exact size of a block, but everything is broken up into a block. So if one person in a block has DirecTV, then the FCC considers that entire block to have DirecTV. And that does not necessarily hold because of the lay of the land, tree coverage, that type of thing. So it's not really an easy indicator for us to be able to do that. You, unfortunately, were not here. We've had several committees created by past boards where we've actually gone out and done studies and completed them, and I'd be happy to forward those studies to you in the future so that you can see what's going on there. But again, we do not have the information down to that type of level. It's just, even our local providers don't want to do it because they don't want people seeing on a map where they have service and they're competition doesn't and vice versa.
But the studies you're referring to, it sounds like are more usage studies as opposed to availability studies.
Well,
If
that
you-
will be part, again, the study hasn't actually been set up yet. This is just to apply for the grant.
No, I'm saying that
The-
you said you did previous studies, and it sounds like those previous studies were on usage, not necessarily availability. If
They
you've
were on
done-
both, Commissioner.
Well, if they've done, if so, therefore, if you've done it on availability, then you have mapped it out, so therefore now we know where it's available or not.
Okay. I don't, Commissioner. I was only
You
able
know?
to make educated guesses. The committee was only able to make educated guesses based on what we knew. Nobody provided us with direct information to be able to map this stuff out to any level of detail.
How is this study going to help us?
Okay, good question.
Okay.
Okay, what we're looking at, and I realize it's a lot of money, and the state of Maryland, again, is the one that's doing this, looking at all of the counties in the state. What this will do, I think, by doing this study, we will be able to, when the state of Maryland, and this is what they're looking to do in the future, comes back and says, we want to fund rural areas in the state of Maryland, and we want to provide great assistance for people to be able to get broadband out to those locations. It doesn't necessarily have to be wired. It could be wireless broadband, whatever the case might be. Then we will be able to go to them because of this study and say, look, we did this. This is the areas where it's showing we have the largest needs in the county, and would then be able to participate in that funding. My fear is this: if we don't do this and 20 other counties in the state of Maryland do, we're not going to get any funding when the time comes, because we don't have the same level of data that the other counties in the state do.
Are you sure there's funding coming down the pipeline to do?
I cannot guarantee with 100%, but that is the purpose of doing this
Right,
study.
okay, but,
Sort of the first step, if
Yeah.
you will, to doing that.
yeah, but it's the first step to possibly getting funding from the state.
Correct.
That may or may not be coming.
Correct.
So we're kind of held hostage.
Well,
If we don't do it, that may or may not get those funds, or
And that's why I jumped on this, Commissioner, is because that is my fear, is that those who participate in this study are going to have data that the state's willing to accept because everybody's on the same playing field, and if we're not on that playing field, then we're not going to qualify.
I'm 100% supportive of making as much people available to broadband.
Sure.
And internet within our county. If this is the best tool to get us into that direction, get us that end result of vision, I appreciate it. I'm just, my concern is that if there have been studies and there is that information already available, now I understand maybe not as readily available as you believe, but if we've exhausted all of those means, then I get it. I'm just not as confident that we've exhausted all of those efforts. So.
And we don't have the $30,000 for the county match set aside, so we're going to have to take that from.
The $30,000, and I don't know that it's going to be that high. I use that figure as the high end from where we
Okay.
were before. That money would be able to come from the broadband account that we currently have $1 million.
So we do have.
So there is
space
money
for
in there that
money.
could
Okay,
be used,
okay.
yes. And I'm actually going to cover that next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the important question.
Yeah. Well, I never believed the past statistics that you give to us on how many people in Carroll have
I know,
internet.
Commissioner.
I don't, because I think those numbers are ridiculous. I've said that for the 4.5 years that I've been here.
I saw it on the internet, though.
high or low?
It's high.
It's high, yeah.
Because I guarantee you, so if, that, and you and I have argued about this for 4.5 years as well. But I think this study will allow us to pinpoint it better and get us a better sense of where that is. And I'm not going to sit here and preach anymore, because I've done it now, and I'm going to continue to do it, but I'm not going to do it today. But I think we need to do anything and everything that we possibly can to continue our road of whatever that is, to get everybody lit up. It's 2019, and I've got parents, I've got kids, I've got people in my district that have zero access. And we have got to do everything we can, and this is a good first step to do it. There's my sermon.
Okay.
We're not the only
appreciate it.
one. We have spots too. that-
Absolutely.
I know, several of you
Not as
do.
bad.
Not as bad as what I've got
No.
it. And I, honest to God, and I'll say this, and it's not an exaggeration, I get 1 to 2 calls a week, and you know that, Mark.
I do. Because you forward them to me?
So I think this is a good idea. I know you're going to have to come back to us if we get the grant. I hope that we do. And we've got the money. We don't have to take it out of the
That's
the
important.
reserve. So I think this is an excellent idea moving forward, and I support this. If
And again,
if
there's no
a figure
guarantee, but I
above
think we have,
100%.
again, I think we
Is
have a
there-
very good chance with this grant.
Okay.
I think we have, and in the grant proposal itself, you will see all of the steps that the county has taken to provide broadband services over the last 7 years to the businesses and residents of Carroll County. And I think that that demonstrates our commitment
Right.
to this process for them.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate Commissioner Wance's comments, and that gives me that 100% confidence that I'm looking for, that this is the right step. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm skeptical, but I support it, and I, just because what Commissioner Wance said on this, we do have to get internet to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And this is, if this is the tool that we need to use to make progress at, then let's do it.
Again, I think it'll put us in good
Right.
shape with the state if they do come up with funding in the future for
Okay.
unserved areas.
Mr. Ripper, I think you gave excellent replies, and I appreciate your intelligence on the subject.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to make the motion that we approve the submission of the FY 2020 Broadband Feasibility Studies Grant application and approve the expansion in the scope of work, keeping in mind that you'll come back to us if and when we, or not if, when we are awarded the grant.
The grant, the applications are due March 15th,
Okay.
so probably towards the end of March.
Wow.
Sharpen your pencil.
I will
Sharpen,
second.
okay? All right, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I didn't hear any. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
job.
Thanks, Karen. All right. Now we're going to get, as a follow-up, good segue, we're going to get an update on the Carroll Broadband Grant Program and Business Park update. And for the two new colleagues, this will be a chance to hear what we have done in the past in an attempt to light up those business areas and match the things that we set up. So anyway,
Sure.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, and again, I'll give a little bit of background so that everybody knows.
I don't have internet, so it takes me a while.
The Commissioners created a $1 million fund in FY18 to help with the expansion of fiber to business and industry in Carroll County. They created off of that, from the committees that I talked about that came back and did presentations, 2 programs. The first is a business park program. The Commissioners allocated $415,000 on February 9th, 2018 to bring fiber into Warfield Complex, Twin Arch, Liberty Exchange, and Ellersburg Commons. To date, the Warfield Complex is complete. There was an allocation of $105,000 to do that project. The cost came in at $26,600, and you're going, boy, that's a huge difference. Why was the first estimate off so much? It's because they actually had underground walking tunnels in the park that made it much easier for us to run the conduit. So we didn't have to do all of that digging and all do that.
You've been in those tunnels,
And
haven't
that-
you, Commissioner?
I have.
There you go.
And that project is complete.
Okay.
Twin Arch, we approved $117,000. We have not actually spent any money, but the project is complete at this point. We have connected 3 buildings in the Twin Arch facility. I think we're connecting about 4 or 5 businesses with that. And the cost to do that was $35,000 to date, is what it's cost us to put that fiber in there. Now, that project's not completely done. We didn't do all of the Twin Arch Business Park. One of the problems that we have there is that there are different property owners throughout the park. So when we go to do something, we have to meet with multiple people in order to be able to get to a specific point. Just so that you know, Commissioner, in the past, Denise Beaver from Economic Development, Deputy Director of Economic Development, myself, actually went down to the business park for a meeting with the businesses there to make sure that everyone was aware of the availability of this, and this is all that's accepted to date.
But it is available to anybody that wants it in that business park.
Anybody that wants in that
And
business
easy
park to
access.
contact us, and,
Right.
and we've run past a lot of buildings, so we may not even have to do any major expansion for some people. It might just be a matter of running a lateral off of the backbone, the middle mile that we have in there at this point. Liberty Exchange, we approved commissioners approved an $87,000 budget there. We just finally got the right of entry agreement from Liberty Exchange this past week, and we will be moving forward with completing that project, and it's estimated it will cost us about $70,000 to do that project. Again, as part of the studies that were being done, we've discovered that there's conduit in the facility itself already that can be used, so we don't necessarily put all that conduit in the ground.
Under budget.
The last one was Eldersburg Commons. It was approved at $106,000. We have made, it probably wouldn't be an underestimate to say dozens and dozens of attempts to get them to move forward with this. They have expressed no interest at all in doing this with us. So
that leaves you with how much money?
Out of the $415,000, we're only going to spend $131,600 right now.
So what are the next steps for business parks? Besides those, or what, are we looking at other ones?
You
then?
could ask myself and Economic Development to go back and look and see what the next group of business parks would possibly be. I know they have some things that are coming up where we may be able to use some of this funding, but we can continue to move forward. We picked these because they were the largest and we thought we would get the best bang for the buck there.
I do apologize, I stepped out for a second. There are 5 specific business parks that Economic Development is promoting, and they promote to the Department of Commerce. Are all 5 are you aware of, that they are in your list?
My understanding is that these 4 are, and that there's one other that I don't know whether it's public yet or not, but yes, so
Okay.
I'm familiar with 5 parks at this point.
Okay.
I can't say 100% certainty they're the same 5, but.
Okay, please work with, Mr.
We do,
Library
we
to
work
make
very
sure
closely together.
that those 5, because as he's packaging them and he's getting them into a lot of realtors' hands, and along with, the State Department of Commerce, for opportunities, I want to make sure that this is definitely tied into it, so, thank you.
Thank you.
So my suggestion would be then to take the additional funds that we have not used, go out to the next layer of business parks and see what we can do with them.
Okay,
and come
if
back
that's
to
the
us.
direction that you give me, that's what we'll follow.
If everyone agrees to that, I mean, if.
Nope.
Okay. Can I finish the presentation before we go there?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm not agreeing with that, but for the record. Okay, fine, go ahead.
The other program that was approved is the commissioners allocated $400,000 to a fiber grant program. Again, for those of you that were not familiar with this process, we have created a grant program for either local businesses or local internet service providers to come to us for up to a 50% match. We would give them up to $25,000 for them to extend our fiber into other facilities. To date, none of the projects have been completed, but we have only received 3 grants from one of the internet service providers for a total of $45,460 if all of those projects are complete. And I'm pretty confident they will be over. It just takes some time for the local providers to get those together, that'll be done. So out of the $400,000 there, we're only looking at spending $45,460 right now. I came before you about a month ago or 2 months ago and asked you to take $45,000 from this account and put it into the operating expenditures so that we could increase the county's connection from 1 gigabyte to 10 gigabyte over the future. That has been completed. We're now at a 4 gigabyte level. We didn't go straight to 10, but we're now at 4, which is more than sufficient. And the good news there is, commissioners, now if one of the redundant connections goes down, nobody's losing anything, because 2 of us are on one, 2 of us are on the other, and 4 is more than enough at this point to cover our connection out to the world. So we're in very good shape there. So, in summary, total estimated expenditures at this point out of the account are $222,060, which currently leaves us $777,940.
What was that figure again?
$777,940.
Okay, you done?
I am done, sir.
Okay, now I'm going to start.
In that case, don't discuss.
So, you all know how I feel about this, and I'm going to make the suggestion that, and I don't know what the figure is here yet. I need to wrap my head around it a little bit, But I want to instruct staff to come up with a way in which we can have a grant program, or a shadowed grant program, if you will, for those to help with those to light up the rural areas that don't have internet.
Okay.
That's my suggestion. I don't know how you're going to go about that. I know it's going to be a little bit of a complication and challenge when it comes to who does. I don't know if we could, somehow get homeowners associations, or certainly we're going to have to allow individuals, because in the rural areas there aren't HOAs. But I think staff should begin to look. Listen, we've heard that there's plenty of money there, and you've beat the doorways and the pathways, and you're not getting any response.
That's correct, Commissioner. We have done an awful lot of outreach.
And I guarantee you
Economic
that
development.
the next person's going to say, well, you haven't done enough. You've done over and above what is necessary as outreach to get to these folks, and we're not getting any response. So I'm here to suggest that you come up with a program with a portion of this money as a grant, in a matching grant or whatever, to help our rural areas get internet.
After we exhaust all.
They already have.
Well,
it's
no,
time to go now.
You only hit 4 of the commercial areas so far.
But
I think you ought to
I mean, I would agree with Commissioner Wentz a little bit, that,
well, wait a minute, a little bit?
I agree with you a
portion of
little
this
bit,
money,
just a little bit.
a portion of this money should
don't.
be used for what you're talking about. I agree, I do agree. But I also agree that we should look at the next level of business parks and reach out to them. And if they're not
First,
interested,
if they
then
don't
we're not going
respond.
to spend the money. That's fine. But I just think we should kind of split the money up.
Yeah.
That just,
Yeah, and honestly, for me, it's not about first or second. It is about understanding, again, where we want to go here in the county. And one of the areas we absolutely want to go, just as I said earlier, is quality of life, which includes the internet in all of our communities in the county. The second is economic business development, where it makes sense. You can do both and work with the staff in establishing a matrix on the cost that you think it would take to do these different efforts, and then come back to us and we can make those decisions as it's our responsibility. But I do not want to minimize the opportunities or take away the opportunities that we deserve, that our community, especially up in the north, deserves.
Sure.
And that's important, so.
Okay, just to give you a little bit of background on in one of the studies that the committees proposed, to actually run fiber physically throughout the entire county, just so that you have some kind of perspective, we estimate it would cost us about $150 million to go run past every resident. If we were to do it physically fiber, not saying that's the way that it would be done, but just so that you understand, to build a mile of fiber cost us between $90,000 and $110,000 on average, depending on whether we have to go underground or whether we use telephone poles as part of the process. So while $777,000 is a lot, for somebody who's a mile off the backbone, we could be spending almost $100,000 just to build that mile there. I can very well do exactly what you asked, and I will get together with the economic development, and we'll get our prior committee back together again, and we'll discuss this. Have economic development make some recommendations on some business parks. I can also tell you, Commissioner, the first thought that I had is I have a feeling that our local service providers might have some idea where they might be able to use some of that money in residential areas. You know, we have Freedom Broadband, which is a wireless company that, you know, we don't necessarily have to run 20 miles of fiber out to a silo in order for them to be able to do things. So we'll make them aware of the fact that you guys are exploring this again, and then we can come back before you with the recommendations like we did the last time.
Yeah, that's fine, and I don't know what the figure is, and I'm not sure I understand what you just said. I think you said that you're in favor of them looking at what they can take from this amount to put towards helping light up some of the rural areas. Is that what you said?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, other things we could look at doing too, Commissioner, and I can get some kind of feel for this. Right now, our max cap was $25,000 on any project that we can contribute. Another possibility that we might come back to you with that you might want to consider is let's take the max cap to $50,000 that we contribute towards the project.
Well, and wasn't that only for like businesses, it wasn't for residential.
Right.
Yeah, it's only for
To date,
businesses.
everything has been just for
This
businesses.
this is my attempt here to expand,
Right.
to help those. And,
Right.
you know, nothing against the business community, but businesses can have more of an ability to put monies towards being lit up than what residents can in some areas, in a lot of the areas. So anything that we can do as a county, I think, to assist our residents in those areas, I don't care where they are, and I know you probably have a couple, Eric, and I know you've got some, Dick. I don't know if you guys do it. I doubt if any of you do over here, but so we're not looking at a huge, big area geographically.
Right.
We can pinpoint, and that study's going to help us pinpoint that we just talked about previous. But it's time for us to do something here, and we keep saying, well, you know, let's put it off. Let's exhaust all efforts. You've been to that one business park, I know, a dozen times. What part of exhaust don't we get?
Well, I'm saying leave them. They had their chance. Move on.
Well, and the other thing is,
I agree with you
Commissioners.
on there.
I think
Okay.
we're all saying the same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to be clear that, so come back to us with an amount out of this 777,000 and a process in which you think we can assist our citizens who need internet.
Right.
We will do that.
Okay.
So keep in mind, and again, just for the two new people, just so that you are aware, Comcast, under our contract with them, anybody who is within a city limit has to be provided access to Comcast cable at no cost for construction or running the fiber or anything like that. So a large portion of our population, our businesses, have access to Comcast cable already. That's
Are you
why.
talking to about all the municipalities
All
within the county?
municipalities, yes.
Yeah, that's in the
That's in the contract. They
contract.
have to provide it to
Right.
anybody within the incorporated town. So,
So
which I
that
think
takes
is-
away some of that anyway.
Right.
So now we're back to rural again.
So we're back to the rural, so.
Yeah.
Where we need it.
Right.
Exactly. So, all right, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you all very much for that. We'll see what you come back with.
Okay,
Got a
can I
time
have
period
to
for us?
about mid-April?
Next week? Good? What? No, that's fine. I think,
Okay.
yeah, that's reasonable.
And we may come back sooner, but I need to
Yeah.
get the committee
And I
back
also
together, get a
like-
meeting set up
Sure.
and.
Right, and I also like your idea of getting the input from those ISPs, you know.
Sure.
Because they're kind of the boots on the ground where because I know they've been out to my area.
Right, they
in
may
an
be
attempt
watching
to
this
do a
right now. I'll
survey.
come running to me right
Yeah.
afterwards and go,
I know
"Hey,
they-
I got-"
Yeah, I know they've been out to do a survey in my area, and one of them couldn't do anything because of the site distance and all that stuff. But if we could infuse a little bit of cash into this, I think we might get to a place where it might help. So,
Okay.
all right?
Happy to do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, open admin. Anybody have anything? I have, before you all get out of here, we have to sign a couple things here, and she's got a couple things. I've got one thing for open admin that I just want to pass along to all of you. On Tuesday evening, the Frederick County County Council had the River Board, Monocacy River Board presentation, and to be blunt, apparently it didn't go well. I think MC Keegan Ayers, the president of the council, said she went through three gavels, maybe broke a couple. I don't know. Anyway, it must have been a very interesting meeting, as some of us have been privy to. And I get a sense that they are nowhere near accepting what we accepted in the fall of last year. Or was it winter? I don't know, whenever we did it. So that's an issue. And I've had conversations with Tim over the last 24, 48 hours. The Frederick County attorney is also looking into what it means. But out of the gate, I can tell you that what we have looked at and what Tim has said is, if we don't both agree, there is no plan. Or it reverts back to the 1990 plan, which I quite frankly think is a slap in the face to the huge amount of work that's been done by the board. So I've requested a meeting with Tom Devilbiss. It'll be the first of next week, to look into what the next steps are And I had a meeting yesterday with MC Keegan Ayers, the president of the Frederick County Council. They're going to try to do their part also to get us to some place here. But I think we're going to have to try to assist in getting this through in some manner. But until I get with Tom and the other folks that have worked hard on this, that's all that I've got. So I'll have an update for you next week. But I just wanted to let you know that it didn't go well at all, and the council president up there is very confident in the fact that it's going to be voted down. And even if it is voted positive, the county executive is going to veto it.
Was that our
So-
problem?
Well, it is because we won't have a plan.
We don't have a plan, but I mean, we've done our part.
I understand that, but now what you're saying, Dick, is that we're gonna have a plan on this side of the river, and they're gonna have their plan on that side of the river. So
I
what do we,
don't know.
put
I
something
mean,
down the middle?
This is.
They get half the river and we get the other half?
We get the water, we get the ground underneath, they get the water.
What
As
you're
long as I
saying
get
is
to
we
fish
need a
it.
regional, we need a regional approach.
It has
a
to be-
regional solution.
I think we're gonna have to
Together.
eventually sit down together and try to get through
Right.
this,
I
so.
think you're right.
More to come on it, but
Right.
what it means for us is what we passed is probably not gonna go, because it's gotta be one plan or no plan.
Right.
Or one plan, the old plan, right, Tim?
Right, and the article I read is even worse than that. There was some consensus on the other side that maybe we need to have the state law amended so that Frederick has their own plan. There is no more Monocacy River Plan. There's the Frederick Monocacy River Plan.
We
So-
can always move county lines.
Yeah, well, so in an interest of trying to make
Everything
sure that
slows
we
downhill.
all have the same approach here, I think at some point we're all gonna have to sit down together, and that was
Yeah.
suggested again yesterday. I know a couple of my colleagues were with
That
me
was
when we
suggested
met before.
months ago, yeah.
Right, when we
Don
discussed
Mickey.
it, yeah.
Yeah, Don.
So
Can't
we'll
wait.
see where we go, but right now it's certainly in flux, this Monocacy River Plan.
You're
So-
up the creek without a paddle, as they say.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, keep going.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's pretty good. So more to come when I get a chance to sit down, and I might pull you in on that meeting as well, Commissioner Weaver. I haven't pinned it down yet, but you've been carrying the load when it comes to our Farm Bureau and stuff up there too, which is really important. So I'll let you know.
These are our constituents we're
Yep.
responding to.
And I think that's it for open admin that I have. Anybody else have anything? All right, we'll go over agendas. And apparently March is going to come in like a lion. Tuesday the 5th, Commissioner Rothstein has 2 town hall meetings scheduled for that day at 10 a.m. and at 7 p.m. at the South Carroll Senior Center. So personal time with Commissioner Rothstein.
What
Take
could be
advantage
better?
of it.
That's right.
What could be better? Well, I can think.
For that
Never
district.
mind.
Life
For
is
that
good.
district.
Keep going.
Wednesday, March the 6th, Mako, Commissioner, myself and Commissioner Rothstein, and then Planning and Zoning has their work session at 6 that evening here, and that's Commissioner Rothstein. Thursday the 7th, the Ag Business Breakfast, Commissioner Weaver at Balgers. We go into our open session then to include Mount Airy Business Park discussion, and we get our budget overview next week on the 7th, and another application for some stormwater management. Is that still the right way that is listed?
No.
Okay, so that'll be changed a little bit there. The afternoon of the 7th, we have our legislative briefing at 1, and some other things that may come up. Veterans Advisory Council presentation, zebra mussel eradication at the Hyde's Quarry, and aquatic invasive species grant application, concurrency management annual report. We are due to hear, or we're due to visit again or work with the CC Visa work group, and a North Carroll High School rezoning update is on the list also that day. And again, that couple of those things may change timing-wise, so we'll do an update. Saturday the 9th is Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company's banquet. Commissioner Boucher and Commissioner Rothstein has the commissioner's report. Everybody good on that week? All right, March 11th. On the 12th, 7 p.m., the Ag Center Board meeting. I'll be attending that. Wednesday the 13th, Commission on Aging and Disabilities. At 10 a.m. is Commissioner Rothstein. And then an opioid prevention forum at the Boys and Girls Club, Commissioner Boucher. Right now, MACO's not scheduled, but there is talk that they may put that on there due to the fact that weather continues to wreak havoc with with the schedule. So more to come on that.
What is the opioid prevention forum?
They're going to run the Heroin Still Kills movie, and they'll have me speak to the children about the perils of opioids.
And you're going to speak to them?
Yes.
Okay. Can I go to that? Put money on for that?
No, you can't. Are you buying me dinner?
May I? Is that what you're saying? May I?
Yeah, I
couldn't answer that
one. I don't remember seeing it. That's why I was asking about it.
I'd love to share the event with you, Dennis.
All right, Thursday the 14th, 7 a.m., BWI Partnership Breakfast.
I'll be attending that.
Oh, why is there a live with an exclamation point? Is
It's
that
at,
like-
it's at the casino. It's at the hotel.
Oh, is it?
The live hotel.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And then we have open session that day. In between all that, I'm scheduled to be in Savage for the Governor's Emergency Management Advisory Council meeting, so we'll see how my schedule rolls with that. Out of the gate, legislative briefing from Mike Fowler. We have an IR text amendment. We'll put that to rest based on the, or is that the public hearing? No, that is to.
It's the public hearing.
That is to.
That's the public
That's
hearing.
the public hearing, okay.
And
That's
then
why
the
I was-
decision will be a week later, basically.
Okay, got it. County transportation priorities, annexation of the livestock auction property, annual transportation plan approval for FY '20, purchase of Groves Mill in the Critical Farms Program, and that's it for the agenda items so far for that day. Friday the 15th, Get Business Now is at Carroll Community College, and right now it's Boucher, Weaver, and Rothstein. That starts at 7:30 a.m., goes all day, I think, right, Ed?
Through lunch.
I think it goes through lunch. I do know that Secretary Schultz at Department of Commerce will be the keynote
Okay.
for that morning, so it should be a good event.
Yep, okay. I'll probably be scooting by there at some point, but you got 3 on there, so, add me for safety purposes. Saturday the 16th is the Hampstead Manchester Business and Community Expo at Man Val. Commissioner Weaver and Lance will be attending. That's a good chance to see Commissioner Weaver prancing around with his leprechaun hat on. That's what happened last year. What?
I don't think we remember things.
Was there alcohol involved?
No, not at the Business Expo, no. It was just Weaver, being Weaver.
It was only with one person.
5:30 p.m. is the Pleasant Valley Fire Company 88th Anniversary Banquet, Wance and Weaver. And it's my turn again already for the Commissioner's Report? I just did
weeks
it.
rolls around.
It happens fast.
Okay. Anything else on agendas? And they're going to be tweaked, so we'll,
I think the information will stay the same, it's just orders will be changed.
right. Okay, so I need a motion to go into closed for a cybersecurity briefing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And then I'll need a motion to recess until 1 p.m. after that.
Motion to recess to 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. See you at 1.
And we're back in here.